Let's go next to Brendan. Brendan from Boston. Brendan, welcome. I'm inviting you to join the discussion. What's going on with you?
I feel honored being on the final episode of the year, David. Thank you for having me on.
My pleasure.
So recently, basically since the election, I've been watching Kyle Kalinske talk a lot about what his ideal candidate going forward is, because the era, as he puts it, the era of the polished politician, which is what Kamala is at least for now over. And he constantly talks about how we need someone who's charismatic, controversial, wouldn't hurt to have a celebrity. He constantly talks about Jon Stewart, which I think is an interesting choice. I want to ask, I don't know if you've talked about it before, but what would you say your ideal candidate would be going forward?
I laid this out in a recent video. The celebrity aspect of it, I'm less sure about. I understand the appeal. Here's the thing. Just the first step is recognizing what are we doing incorrectly. The next step is not assuming that what our adversaries do would necessarily work for us. So, am I with those who say we've been doing something very wrong here? The answer is absolutely. Is my assumption that doing what the right has done will work for us? I don't know. I mean, I'll give you an example. I don't know that running a left-wing billionaire is the answer to the right twice electing this right-wing billionaire, as an example. Why? Well, because our values are different. What we value is completely different. The celebrity question is an interesting one. I think it just depends on who we're talking about. I'm taking your word that Kyle said that Jon Stewart would be an interesting candidate. I don't know that he said that, but let's assume he did. I think what's interesting about that is that he has the approach constitutionally that I think you need to deal with a lot of these folks. But here's the thing. Sometimes you take somebody who in an informal setting is very good, you put them in a formal setting. Now I'm officially a campaign. And very quickly the advisors and the focus group people and everybody runs in and they turn that person into a sort of shadow of their former selves, and they become just like what we're trying to get away from. I'm not saying that would happen with Jon Stewart. I'm just saying that's why you've got to be careful when you say this celebrity or that rich person or whatever. But I think Jon Stewart is certainly an interesting choice, and it's not someone I would dismiss out of hand.
It's interesting you bring that up, because this is just reports that I've read before. It's nothing confirmed, but I had heard that the Kamala campaign, the Harris campaign, excuse me, actually told Tim Walz, for example, to tone down the weird rhetoric, which I think wasn't a good move if that was the case, because it was working for a
It
while. You
seemed
know,
to be
when
working.
you
It seemed to be working. Now, it's possible they had some signal that it was stopping being so good, but I agree with you. It very much seemed to be working.
it seemed to be working, and also, to your point of what is the right doing that is working, what can we be doing that is working? And I think, as chronically online as I found the Trump campaign to be this time around, it worked. I mean, he went on every podcast under the sun. And you brought this up, as you said, when you met with the Biden administration a few weeks ago. Kamala's online game was just not as strong. Whereas you see someone like Bernie Sanders, he
Yep.
was going on Theo Vaughn, who clearly is somebody who steers much more towards the right. So I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned. And I do think that Kyle, again, he's repeated it several times of, Jon Stewart, Jon Stewart, Jon Stewart, but also someone who is charismatic, who has a spine, isn't afraid to call these people out. Whereas, well, yes, and I speak for a lot of people when I say unity is important, you also have to stand up for what you believe in and also not betray your supporters at the same time.
Agree very much. Brendan from Boston, thank you so much for the call. Great to hear from you. Let's go to Ray from Arizona. Ray, welcome to the show. What's on your mind to close out the year here?
Yes, I've been a long time listener, but I also listen to like a lot of other leftist platforms. And one thing that I've noticed is the infighting. Obviously, we've all seen it. I personally think that it doesn't help. And I've been trying to do all that I can to get people to stay together more, and to just listen to other leftist voices. Now, my question to you is, how would you advise leftists to broaden their horizons, open their minds, and be a little bit more empathetic? Because I know with when we want to be critical, leftists tend to attack the hardest. So how would you advise listeners to be kinder and to use more empathy and to maybe, let people have their own opinions that are nuanced? I saw Tim Pool literally doing that, and I'm like, that's what we need to do. But anyway, that's my question.
Well, listen, I think that there's a fundamental question of what is your goal? And I say this when people call me and say, how should I deal with my crazy uncle at Thanksgiving? And the question is, what is the goal? If the goal is to win and to grow the coalition, then you need to act in a way that makes that a possibility. And that means you don't attack people when you agree on 95% of stuff. You don't exclude. You don't say you're the reason that we're losing. You bring them in. You become inclusive instead of exclusive. If your goal is to have purity tests such that what is left is a coalition that agrees with you on 100% of stuff, then you would attack and you would make people feel like they shouldn't be part of the movement, and you exclude and you say, I don't need your vote and I don't need your vote. It's just a matter of what you want. Now, I want to win. So I'm with you, Ray, where I think we need to go with the inclusive, empathetic. And this is something that, I don't agree with 99% of what the right stands for. But one of the things that they do that is effective, I'm not saying it's morally good or bad, I'm just saying that it's effective, is as soon as someone says, hey, you know what, I'm starting to rethink some of my views on some of this stuff, or I don't agree with you guys on a lot of this stuff, but I think that you're better than the alternative and I think you should win, they welcome them. They still, behind their back, I'm sure, are talking shit, and all this stuff. But they welcome them and they say, this is someone who's going to help us win. And so I think that the fundamental question that people on the left need to ask is, what is my goal? And act accordingly based on that.
Thank you.
All right, Ray from Arizona, great to hear from you. Well, I wrote a book after a long journey and a ton of work. I am really thrilled with how it turned out, and I hope you'll read it. The book is called The Echo Machine. And in a nutshell, it looks at how American politics got so broken, who has already figured out solutions, and how we can try to fix it and stop the terror of Trump for the next 4 years. With Trump winning this election, The Echo Machine couldn't be more relevant, not only a warning about how we got here, but also about what might be coming and how to prevent the worst outcomes. We've got to stay engaged. We need a plan, and that's what the book is about. There's a belief out there that unless you have corporate media behind you, you can't have a successful political book launch, that it's not possible. I think we can prove that wrong. Order The Echo Machine today at davidpakman.com/echo on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Audible, Kindle, anywhere that books, ebooks, and audiobooks are sold. You can also call any local bookstore and say, please order me The Echo Machine by David Pakman. Wherever you get the book, you'll get the free pre-order perks, including the signed book plate. Head to davidpakman.com/free book stuff after ordering.